Good morning. Good to have you with us. I'm Joe Fryer.
And I'm Savannah Sellers. Thank you for starting your day with us. We're going to begin this hour with the latest out of the Middle East as this fragile two-week ceasefire between the U.S., Israel, and Iran gets off to a rocky start. Israel unleashed intense attacks on Lebanon overnight after the U.S. and Israel said Lebanon was not included in that ceasefire agreement.
Lebanon's health ministry said hundreds of people have been killed or injured in the new round of strikes. Those attacks quickly condemned by world leaders. Israel began its ground invasion of Lebanon weeks ago, targeting the Iranian-backed militant group Hezbollah. An Iranian news agency reported that oil traffic through the Strait of Hormuz stopped again yesterday because of Israel's strikes on Lebanon. This after the first tankers were allowed to pass through. President Trump said the U.S. would be helping with what he calls the traffic buildup in the Strait, while an Iranian news agency is suggesting that naval mines are now in the Strait. Now, despite the ceasefire, states in the Persian Gulf, including the UAE and Kuwait, also reported new Iranian attacks on Wednesday after blasts were reported at oil sites in Iran. And President Trump, in a Truth Social post just before midnight on Wednesday, said U.S. troops would remain in and around Iran until a real agreement is reached. He also called for Iran to abandon its nuclear weapons and to open the Strait of Hormuz. The president said if Iran does not comply with the ceasefire agreement, then, in his words, the shooting starts bigger, better, and stronger than anyone has ever seen before. All this comes ahead of peace talks expected between the U.S. and Iran in Pakistan this weekend. We have a team of correspondents and analysts joining us today on Morning News Now to break down this fragile ceasefire. We begin in Washington with NBC News correspondent Alice Barr. Alice, good morning.
Good morning, Joe and Savannah. And Iran is accusing Israel and, by extension, the U.S. of violating the ceasefire's terms because of those escalating Israeli strikes in Lebanon that Israel's prime minister said this morning will continue and are not part of the ceasefire, as the U.S. is working to keep upcoming peace talks on track. Growing threats to a fragile peace as Israeli attacks in Lebanon and turmoil in the Strait of Hormuz risk undermining a two-week ceasefire with Iran. President Trump posting overnight that the U.S. military will remain in place until a full peace deal is reached. And if it's not, quote, the shooting starts. Vice President J.D. Vance set to lead the U.S. team in peace talks with Iran this weekend in Pakistan, zeroing in on a central sticking point.
We want Iran to not be able to make a nuclear weapon. We want the nuclear fuel, which is something the president has made very clear.
Iran disputes that giving up its enriched uranium was part of the ceasefire agreement. The Strait of Hormuz is also central to a deal, and Iran's military is asserting it will maintain control over that vital energy route, with shipping traffic still not flowing freely, despite President Trump's demands it be fully open under the ceasefire. The president floating a possible joint venture between the U.S. and Iran to collect tolls on the strait, as Iran is tying the critical waterway to another obstacle to peace, Israel's ongoing strikes in Lebanon, where it's battling with Iran-backed Hezbollah militants. Mediator Pakistan initially said the ceasefire includes Lebanon. Israel and the U.S. dispute that.
Lebanon is not part of the ceasefire. That has been relayed to all parties involved in the ceasefire.
Iran says the fighting must end there, too, under a final deal. Serious challenges on a fraught path to peace. And amid growing concerns over whether the ceasefire will hold, oil prices started creeping up again overnight, a sign it's likely to take a while to see lower gas prices. Food costs potentially affected, too, because of disruptions to fertilizer shipments at what is a critical time. Savannah and Joe.
And Alice, with the Strait of Hormuz central to the peace talks and to trying to get those gas prices down, why is it Iran is still directing ships to use alternate shipping routes?
Yeah, this is this really key leverage point, the Strait of Hormuz, and Iran is suggesting it may have laid mines in the most highly trafficked portions of the strait, saying that due to the, quote, wartime situation, ships need to coordinate with Iranian armed forces to use detours for traffic coming in and out. President Trump has demanded there be free flow traffic through there, so it's unclear how that's going to square with the situation we're seeing now. Guys.
Right. Alice Barr in Washington. Alice, thank you.
Let's move now to to NBC News International correspondent Raf Sanchez, who is joining us from London with the latest. Raf, good morning. So let's start with what's happening on the ground, ongoing strikes across the Middle East. Despite that 2-week ceasefire deal, what is the latest?
Savannah, Joe, good morning. So we have seen an end to American and Israeli strikes inside of Iran, and we have now largely seen an end to Iranian strikes, both on Israel and on those Gulf countries. There were a few lingering attacks on Wednesday. That seems to have been a product of it taking some time for it to filter down to Iranian commanders to stop shooting. But what you were seeing on your screen there is the scene in Beirut, where the violence continues on an enormous scale. Israel carrying out the largest airstrikes of the entire war on the Lebanese capital. 250 people, among them children, killed all across Lebanon in this wave of attacks. More than 1,000 injured. That's according to Lebanon's civil defense. The UN human rights chief is saying it is nothing short of horrific that there was this level of violence after a ceasefire had already gone into place. But the key sticking point is the one that you were just discussing. The U.S. and Israel say Lebanon is not part of the ceasefire. Iran says it is. Pakistan says it is. Pakistan, of course, is the one that is supposed to be mediating this ceasefire. And this really, really is a test of this truce now, whether it is going to be this ongoing Israeli attack in Lebanon that potentially derails this agreement. The Iranians telling the U.S. that they have to decide at this point between continuing the ceasefire or allowing the Israelis to continue their targeted attacks against Hezbollah.
Raf, let's talk about the Strait of Hormuz. What is the status of the Strait right now? Where do efforts stand on just trying to reopen it?
So I just checked, guys, in the last hour with one of the big maritime data firms. They say 5 ships passed through the Strait of Hormuz yesterday. All 5 of those are bulk carriers, so none of them are oil and gas tankers. 5 ships. Before the war, you were seeing about 110 passing through every day. So this is still an absolute trickle of what it should be. The Strait clearly not open at this stage. And you are hearing these ongoing Iranian threats saying that there are naval mines in the middle of the Strait. And so ships that want to pass through will need to take what's being called the Tehran toll booth, passing through Iran's territorial waters. That is going to be a major sticking point, both with the U.S. and with countries in the Gulf. Guys.
Raf, we sort of saw both the U.S. and Iran declare victory in a way yesterday. How are world leaders responding to this interim deal?
So I can tell you here in Europe, there is a lot of relief that there is a ceasefire, even if it is fragile. You are seeing the British Prime Minister, the French President saying that they are prepared to do whatever they can to try to bolster this agreement. There is a lot of concern here about the ongoing Israeli attacks in Lebanon. And then in the Gulf, where I spent the last couple of weeks in Qatar, real worry is that the Iranians are going to try to extend their control over the Strait of Hormuz past some kind of full-time peace agreement. The Iranians, in one of their 10 demands that they put forward as part of these ceasefire talks, say that they want to maintain sovereignty over the Strait going forward. Guys.
All right, Raf Sanchez, thank you so much.
Let's take a closer look at the upcoming negotiations in Pakistan now with Kenneth Pollack. He is Vice President for Policy at the Middle East Institute. Kenneth, good to have you with us. Thanks for joining us this morning. These talks are supposed to start in Islamabad Saturday morning. We know Vice President Vance is leading the U.S. delegation along with the Special Envoy, Steve Witkoff, the president's son-in-law, Jared Kushner. Weeks into this war, where do they even begin? Is it with Iran's supply of uranium? Is it with the Strait of Hormuz?
Well, I think first, Joe, they're going to have to start by defining what the heck they agreed to. And this is what we're seeing play out over the past 24 hours is that this ceasefire seems to have been put together in such a slapdash fashion that neither side can agree on what they actually agreed to do. And that's got to be a starting point, because if this ceasefire is going to last past the weekend, they've got to come to some kind of an agreement on what the terms are about who's going to do what and not do what during this 2-week window. If they can't deal with that, it's not going to be possible to deal with any of these enormous issues that they're now supposed to be trying to deal with. Issues we should remember that the Trump administration has not been able to resolve with Iran the prior 15, 16 months, and that in some cases the United States and Iran haven't really been able to agree on for decades.
So the Strait of Hormuz has become just such a critical piece of this and really is such leverage that the Iranian regime has. I want to play something that Vice President Vance said about this last night. We'll talk on the other side.
We actually think that we are seeing signs that the Straits is starting to reopen. I think you guys have probably seen oil prices have come down. So I think the oil markets, the gas markets are seeing the same thing. But the president's very, very clear. The deal is a ceasefire, a negotiation. That's what we give. And what they give is the Straits are going to be reopened. If we don't see that happening, the president is not going to abide by our terms if the Iranians are not abiding by their terms.
So we just heard from Raf a little bit about, what's not happening in the Strait, what hasn't sort of returned to any type of normal status. So how realistic do you think it is that the Iranians do reopen this while talks are playing out, or that they're going to agree to any kind of deal that I think importantly takes away the control they now have of the Strait, which, by the way, they did not have or exercise before this conflict began?
Correct. I mean, that's absolutely right, Savannah. The Iranians are claiming that they are now going to be able to extract this toll. And of course, it's been very unhelpful that you've had President Trump more or less suggest that that might be fine with the United States because we're also going to take a cut of it. That's not good either, right? That too would be a massive change from before the war started, and one that would be terrible in terms of the impact on oil, in terms of impact on regional politics, in terms of the entire kind of global international order. But that's only one of several that need to be dealt with. The problem that we have here is, as you heard Vice President Vance just say, the U.S. absolutely clear on what they agreed to. Iranians absolutely clear on what they agreed to. But these two things seem to have very little intersection. Right. And that's all got to be straightened out. And, it's got to be straightened out very, very quickly. And it's got to be straightened out in a way that the United States really can say at the end of this war, the situation with Iran is better, not worse. If the U.S. agrees to allow Iran to collect tolls in the Strait of Hormuz, that would be disastrous. If the U.S. agrees to pull U.S. troops out of the region, as the Iranians are also claiming, that would be disastrous. Right? There are so many terms involved in this that really could end the war on a much worse set of terms for the United States than before it began.
Kenneth, this remains an unpopular war here in America. The latest Economist YouGov poll published this week shows 53% of Americans don't support it. So with the Trump administration facing this political pressure here at home, do you think they have the wherewithal to finish out these talks, to end this conflict long enough to significantly curb the Iranian threat and put in place a framework for a peace that's actually lasting?
Yeah, this is going to be really hard, Joe. First, negotiating with the Iranians is always incredibly painful. They love to negotiate. They're not nearly as good at it as they think they are. They typically push deals past the actual equilibrium point. Very, very painful altogether. But, let's go back to a point that Savannah just made, which I think is also very important, which is that going into this, the Iranians believe that they're now in an advantageous position. They believe that by asserting control over the Gulf, they have President Trump right where they want him, and they don't seem to show any sign of giving that up. And so we've now got layered onto these decades of problems that I just mentioned, problems that have bedeviled any number of past administrations between the U.S. and Iran. We've now got layered onto it this new set of problems that have arisen during the war.
Kenneth Pollack, good to have you with us. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, U.S. markets surged on Wednesday following news of this two-week ceasefire, with the Dow Jones logging its best day in a year. We've got our friend, you can see him, Investopedia editor-in-chief and chief business editor of People Inc., Caleb Silver, to talk more about the broader impact here. Caleb, good morning. So just first, let's walk through what we saw on Wall Street yesterday and what you're expecting today, how the market's going to open, given this fragility, the uncertainty here around the ceasefire.
Yeah, it was all green yesterday, a huge relief rally, the biggest rally we've seen in the stock market since April of last year after sort of the loosening of those Liberation Day tariffs. So a big relief rally across pretty much all sectors, especially tech sectors, the travel sector, all sectors that would be impacted by these higher oil prices. This morning, it doesn't look like that at all. Reverse, not as bad, not as extreme as yesterday, but we're seeing oil prices back up near $100 a barrel, both for West Texas Intermediate, what we use here in the United States, and Brent crude crude, what they use in Europe. You're going to see a sell-off when Wall Street opens at 9:30 a.m. today. Not extreme, but you see how volatile these markets are right now, given the uncertainty that's happening in the Strait of Hormuz.
Caleb, let's talk more about this roller coaster in the energy markets. The oil prices dipped yesterday following the truce announcement. They're ticking back up today after Iran accused the U.S. of violating parts of this ceasefire. Is this volatility something that we just have to get used to over the next several days, the next several weeks?
Yeah, maybe several months. Don't forget that oil trades 23 hours a day, 6 days a week around the world. So you're seeing these big fluctuations in price. They don't make their way all the way to consumers right away because oil is this commodity that trades both for the spot price, what we pay for it today, where there's a lot of demand, and what we pay for it in the future. You see these big price swings, and that ultimately affect consumer prices, jet fuel prices, fertilizer costs, food costs, everything pretty much that requires fuel.
So, Caleb, how's all this impacting gas prices and also jet fuel prices when we see those airline tickets? Are either of these likely to come down anytime soon if this were to hold?
Yeah, they're not going to come down very quickly. You usually see a week to a 2-week delay when it comes from higher oil prices. It takes about 2 weeks to make its way to the gasoline tanks. Now it takes a lot longer to come back down. Oil rises very quickly, but drops very slowly like a feather. And there's a lot of price elasticity that retailers have discovered over the last few weeks as they've raised prices. And these airline companies in particular, they buy fuel into the future. So they're not going to lower prices, especially when they don't know what the price of oil is going to be 2-3 months from now.
All right, Caleb Silver, thanks as always.
We are less than a week from tax day, but on a day that is defined by dollars and cents, some Americans say they're going to make a political statement and won't be paying their federal taxes this year.
It's part of a growing call to protest against the war with Iran. It's known as war tax resistance. It is a form of protest that's been around for decades. NBC News business and economy reporter Ali Canal is here with more on this. Ali, good morning.
Good morning. Yes, and a very interesting trend. It's certainly gaining a lot of traction on social media, but as you said, it's been around for decades. It was made very popular during the Vietnam War. We did speak with experts along with some of those protesters who told us that there are multiple ways to resist. That could be adjusting or stopping those federal tax withholdings. It could be delaying some of those filings or just not paying altogether. Here's a bit more of what we learned. Some Americans are protesting the war in Iran and President Trump's domestic policies by putting their money where their mouth is as part of a call to sit out of paying federal taxes this year.
I'm Rachel, and I'm not paying my federal income tax this year.
It's time that we stop paying our taxes.
Tax Strike 2026. Spread the word.
On social media, people saying they'd rather put the money into a savings account, donate it to a charity, or simply keep it for themselves. Anything instead of handing it over to the federal government. It's called war tax resistance, a type of protest that's been around in some form since the colonial era, spiking around the Vietnam War when folk singer Joan Baez famously refused to pay 60% of her taxes, reportedly leading the IRS to file a lien against her. Lawyers and accountants say following in her footsteps could land you in big trouble, but advocates say interest is now surging again.
Before the invasion of Gaza, we would typically have 40,000 unique users visit our site on an annual basis. This past January, we had the most visits to our website that we've ever had, over 110,000 unique users.
Lincoln Rice leads the National War Tax Resistance Coordinating Committee. The anti-war group has been around since the early 80s. It just recently held its largest ever training on just how to resist.
We offer War Tax Resistance 101 trainings. It'll cover the legal method, which would be essentially putting yourself in such a position as not to owe taxes.
The IRS tells us measuring the size and scope of this type of protest is not feasible only a month into the war. For some, it might mean pulling legal levers to lower their tax bill. For others, it goes a step further.
Essentially, we're going to strike. We're striking on taxes.
Neetu Sharma says she decided this year to stop withholding federal taxes from her paycheck.
Resisting is a privilege, and not everyone can resist in the same way. So having options and still being able to take action was great.
Her reason, she says, is where her tax dollars are going, even before the war with Iran started.
We were sending a lot of funding and arms to other countries instead of taking care of the people at home.
While it's impossible to track exactly where your individual tax dollars go, last fiscal year, the Treasury says the federal government collected about half of its revenue from individual income taxes. About $900 billion went to defense, according to the Office of Management and Budget. It's the government's fifth biggest expense behind other big-ticket items like Social Security, Medicare, interest on the national debt, and other health spending. Sharma says her protest isn't about avoiding taxes altogether.
I'm still paying state taxes, and I believe state taxes are something that we should continue paying.
Are you worried at all about going to jail, potentially?
I was at a point, the IRS does not have the manpower to go out and, audit every single person and look at who's not paying federal taxes.
Sharma believes her approach is legal, but experts say not paying the taxes you owe is anything but.
The law does not care what your motive is for either not filing, not paying your taxes.
The IRS and legal experts say avoiding your taxes could land you with a laundry list of penalties, including fees, getting your passport revoked, and in some cases, jail time.
If you were to offer any sort of legal advice to some of these protesters, what would you tell them?
I would tell them, push a candle through a paper plate and go to a vigil and sing. Don't refuse to pay your taxes. That will land you in prison.
So as this protest gains traction online, the real consequences may happen offline when taxes are due.
And as you just heard, the big thing those legal experts stress to us is motivation does not matter. Even if you're protesting, if you're not paying those taxes, you could still face those penalties, including possible criminal charges.
All right. Fascinating, Allie. Thank you so much.
Of course. Thank you so much. All right. Well, a Hawaii doctor now faces up to 2 decades in prison for trying to kill his wife while on a hike for her birthday. After 8 hours of deliberations, a jury unanimously found him guilty of attempted manslaughter. NBC News correspondent Liz Kreutz has the latest details from court. Liz, good morning.
Well, hey there. Yeah, we have just learned a Hawaii jury has chosen to convict Dr. Gerhard Koenig of attempted manslaughter based on extreme mental or emotional disturbance. This is a charge that can come with up to 20 years in prison. And as the law clerk read the verdict, the Maui anesthesiologist, he looked really emotional. He was putting his head in his hand. At one point, he grabbed tissues to wipe away tears. It all comes after more than 2 weeks of dramatic testimony where his wife, Ariel, described how she believed her husband, Dr. Koenig, outraged over an emotional affair she was having with a coworker, tried to push her off a cliff before trying to inject her with a syringe and beating her with a rock. Body camera footage was shown during the trial showing the moment that 2 hikers said that they intervened after hearing Ariel's screams. Dr. Koenig himself, though, testified, telling the jury a different version of events. He argued this was self-defense, saying he only attacked his wife after she attempted to kill him. But one of the most explosive moments came from Koenig's own son, who testified that his father seemingly confessed to trying to kill his stepmom during a FaceTime call after the attack. Koenig said his son misunderstood him during that trial, or during that call, I should say, but ultimately it was the jury that had to decide which version of events to believe. They deliberated for about 8 hours, and while they did not find him guilty on the higher charge of second-degree attempted murder, which would have come with a potential life sentence, they did charge him with that attempted manslaughter, and a judge has set his sentencing for August. Back to you.
All right, Liz Kreutz, thank you.
We are following new details on a massive warehouse fire in California. Police now say a disgruntled employee is under arrest. New video appears to show someone deliberately setting that fire inside a Kimberly-Clark facility east of Los Angeles. Happened early Tuesday. A voice can be heard saying, quote, "All you had to do was pay us enough to live." NBC News correspondent Aaron McLaughlin has more.
Police say this massive warehouse fire was allegedly the work of a disgruntled employee. Stunning new video appears to show the start of the fire. In the footage posted to social media, you hear someone say, "All you had to do was pay us enough to live," as stacks of toilet paper burn.
All you had to do was pay us enough to live. There goes your inventory.
Police announced the arrest of Chamil Abdul Kareem on suspicion of multiple felony arson-related charges, adding the 29-year-old is an employee of NFI Industries, a third-party distributor for Kimberly-Clark, the company known for manufacturing paper-based personal care and hygiene products.
We can confirm that he was on scene of the fire at the time that it started, yes.
In a statement, police say they can't comment on specifics, but are aware of this video, adding they will be utilizing any evidence for the investigation. In Ontario, California, flames shot up in back of nearby homes as the fire tore through the approximately 1 million square foot warehouse.
Definitely was uncharacteristic fire. It definitely pushed our firefighters into that defensive operation, and that was one indication that it could possibly be a arson of nature.
In a statement, Kimberly Clark said no one was injured and all workers were safely evacuated. Kareem has yet to be formally charged and is being held without bail. Erin McLaughlin, NBC News.
Let's get to weather now. Spring still has not sprung on the East Coast with another day of below average temps from North Carolina to New York. We've got the details in your forecast.
Or did it spring like 3-4 weeks ago?
Then unsprung.
As they call it, full spring. What can I say? It's little by little going to improve, guys. We've got really one more day of kind of chilly conditions across parts of the Northeast, at least cooler than they should be for this time of year, before we do see spring potentially try to stick around. Here's what we've got right now. This area of high pressure is bringing in this cool air, and it's kind of ushering it right into the East Coast. So no surprise that we're waking up to frost advisories and freeze warnings across much of this region. We've got Charlotte to Washington, D.C., and stretching into Philadelphia included in those. Some of these coldest lows are going to be down into the 20s, but you can see right now we're mostly hanging out into those 30s. Philadelphia at 32 degrees right now. We've got 36 this morning in New York City, 30s in Richmond, Roanoke, Washington, D.C. These, of course, are below where they should be. On the other side of this, we look a little farther to the south, and we've got an area of high pressure that's ushering in warmer air and really making a difference in those afternoon temperatures across parts of the Great Lakes, the Midwest, and the Plains. We've got 70s and 80s on tap for a lot of spots. Even the farthest north you go, places like Detroit and Chicago, still going to get into those upper 60s. So those locations, you're going to be feeling a lot better today. If you live on the East Coast, tomorrow is really your day, specifically across the Northeast, where you're going to see that big difference in temperatures and will finally be above normal. So New York City, 66 degrees, 75 in Washington, D.C. You get the picture. Also good news, our friends in Florida, they're going to start to see things kind of winding down a little bit. We're going to still see some of that rain in the picture for the Sunshine State today. That kind of unsettled weather continues. But then tomorrow, we'll start to see some drier conditions kind of settling in, although the rip current risk not going anywhere anytime soon. So heads up if you plan to head to the beaches. Again, spring break week, a lot of folks in the water, especially if they finally get some dry time. So be careful of that and watch for those flags. Otherwise, maybe another inch or so in some of the highest locations, like closer to the Space Coast. As we look ahead to the weekend, there's your Friday. Great conditions on the East Coast, lots of sunshine. We will have some stronger storms in the middle of the country as we get into the weekend, and some really unsettled conditions out west, too. Some additional snow for our friends across the Sierra range.
Sure, they're thrilled.
But at least they have some spring skiing. You know, like when I put on my coat this morning, I'm just going to work. I don't want to wear my coat anymore.
There you go. Optimist. I like that. Thanks, Angie.
Thank you.
So weather's not the only reason we're keeping an eye on the skies for this weekend. The crew of Artemis 2 racing through space, making its way back toward Earth. You can see here the view from the Orion capsule. That was this morning. That white sliver may look like what we think of on Earth as the moon in a crescent phase. That's our planet. The capsule, currently a little more than 150,000 miles from Earth, is expected to splash down off the California coast tomorrow evening.
Yeah, the return trip comes after the 4 astronauts traveled further from Earth than anyone has ever gone before. They became the first humans ever to see so much of the far side of the moon with the naked eye. Their view is captured in these incredible images shared by NASA. Overnight, we heard from the crew in a rare deep space news conference where they reflected on this historic lunar flyby.
And to look down on it from so close was, or over at it from so close was just, it was hard to describe.
What we really hoped in our soul is that we could, for just a moment, have the world pause and remember that this is a beautiful planet in a very special place in our universe, and we should all cherish what we have been gifted.
I love that from their viewpoint, the Earth looks like how we think of the moon. We used to, when I was young, we called that Grandpa's toenail. My grandpa passed away when I was young, so we always looked up and we saw Grandpa's toenail on the moon. So now from the moon, they're seeing Grandpa's toenail.
Oh, my goodness. And just so neat, them naming some of these craters that they see. It's just incredible. And to finally have images like that of the moon versus the Apollo footage.
And more to come.
Yes, exactly.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.